Filters, and today we're going to talk about envelopes, specifically ADSR envelopes, which are attack, decay, sustain, and release, and they let you modulate your sounds over time. So they flex and flow and get interesting and evolve and do cool stuff. Kind of like in this track right now. If you can hear it, type in yes and let me know. Give me a couple seconds to get my feed up so I can see your questions and comments. I'm going to be answering comments in the Facebook group. So if you're watching on YouTube, I'm not going to catch your comments until later, but I will answer if you comment. It's just that I can only watch one place at a time. And we should be coming up in the Mixotexture Facebook group. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. I know we're on quarantine or lockdown, whatever you want to call it, which feels suspiciously a lot like staying home to make beats. Daniel's here, cool. Patrick's here. Let me know if the mic and sound are okay in the audio level, because I always want to make sure you can hear what I'm doing and so it sounds good. Max Tomaj, what's up? So yeah, I got a beat playing, and in just a second I'm going to go into full screen and start running through this lesson. So can you hear me? Can you see me? Oh, Andy May says audio is all good. Thank you. Cool. So that means I can hit the magic button. Pew. And now we should be in Ableton full screen. So the most important thing about sound design is to make your sounds original, so that they're fun for you and they feel good and you feel satisfied that you did something awesome with Ableton. But also for your audience, when they're listening to the music, they're like, hey, wow, I never heard that before. You know, a friend of mine who makes house records, DJ Strobe, who actually has multiple gold records, he said something really interesting. He said, you know, most of the records that come out that are smash hits have a new sound that nobody heard before. Like in the 80s, that would be, to get that, it would be like, oh, let's, buy this new synth, and nobody else has that sound. Or, nowadays there's so many plugins and everything, we have like an infinite range of sounds. But it's interesting to think that sometimes just a totally brand new sound could take people to another place they've never heard, and they just want to hear it again because it's such a weird, cool sound. So the goal for me is definitely making original sounding sounds in my tracks. And it's surprising how easy that is. You don't have to have a million plugins or a whole bunch of effects or anything like that. You can start with really simple, basic, like synth parts and make them into interesting sounds. So what are envelopes all about? Well, let's listen to it. I made a bunch of different sounds, starting with all the same thing, a very simple operator patch with just a sine wave or a triangle wave. And then I changed some of the parameters. So the first one, let me say, I made a new track, all right? The first thing, I was like, all right, I'm gonna make a pad sound, change the attack time. And then I want to show the decay time, so I'll use a bass sound. I want to show sustain level, so I made another sound for that. And then release time with the lead. Maybe if I solo them first, it'll make a little more sense. Hey Daniel, how you doing? Sounds good. All right, thanks. So to begin with, here's our little pad kind of sound. All right. So that's one character, and we'll play with how the attack time changes that sound. Next, we've got our bass sound. Where I changed the decay time to make the bass work. For the sustain, I thought, how can I demonstrate that? Maybe I'll do something like this. That has a reverb on there, don't get mixed up by that. And you can see there's some automation going through in this clip, where it feels like, oh, something's getting louder. Remember, sustain is a level, not a time. And then to show off the release time, I did a little lead sound. So that's making the note last longer or overlap on itself. So we're going to go into a little more detail on these. And then finally, one of the coolest things about Ableton is that you can loop your envelopes to get something like this. Wait for it. It sounds like there's somebody playing notes over and over again. This is actually one long note, all right? And what we're doing is looping with this little parameter right here, just the attack portion. But first, let's figure out what do those things mean. So we're going to start with soloed sound. not loud in my headphones. And this is like, it's almost like a doorbell. It's one of those stupid little synth sounds you hear all the time, like an error message in a synth or anywhere that people build a little tiny analog circuit to make a tone generator. It can sound something like this. So let me put everything down to almost 0. At the very shortest of all settings, you don't even get any sound. Attack is a time that tells you how long does it take to get to the full volume on this sound. And I like doing a kind of, I like really exaggerating everything to show you exactly what we're hearing. So the release time is at 0, sustain level is at 0, and decay time is at 0. The only thing we're going to hear is the synth ramp up to full volume, and the attack time is going to tell us how long it takes to get to that volume. That's interesting. It almost sounds like a backwards sound, like something going backwards. But that's not enough of audio for me. So let's make the decay time a little bit longer now, which means after it gets to the full volume, how long does it take to go back down to 0? Now we're getting somewhere. And you can't see what I'm doing right now, but what I'm doing is I'm holding down the note with my finger. And I keep holding my finger down, but the note goes away. Because all we're hearing is only the attack and decay portion of the sound. Now, if we want to hear a little bit more, let's turn up the sustain level so that as the decay is decaying away, instead of decaying down to minus infinity, I'm looking at this knob right here, instead of having our decay portion end at minus infinity, which is nothing, now it's going to say, okay, the synth takes 4 milliseconds to get to full level, and then a long decay time to get down to its resting state, which is this sustain level. I could put it a little lower, put it all the way up. And if we put, like if we want to hear, the full on-off, we can go like this: 0 attack, 0 decay, full sustain, 0 release. That's probably the most computer type beep you could get, where nothing is happening, right? It's just like you hear a sound and it's on and it's off. This is a good point to illustrate how does it make sense that we're doing subtractive synthesis. If you heard some of the first lesson, subtractive synthesis means we're taking things away, subtraction, right? So with filters, we were subtracting tone and making shaping the tone by cutting away the highs with a low pass filter, or cutting away the lows or something, or the mids. Subtractive synthesis with envelopes, right now it applies to volume. We're using the amp envelope. So the starting thing is like full level. Think about like a cucumber, right? Where it's the whole thing. And then as we change the time relationships, we're going to cut off little pieces, like carving down away from the full thing. So when we change the attack time, we say, we're going to subtract volume at the beginning and make it take longer to get to that volume. Like if you think of a piece of wood with a corner and you're kind of cutting off the corner to make it round, that's kind of how we're subtracting with the envelope. And then maybe instead of being up at full volume, we're going to subtract and have it rest down here. Oh, there goes a fire truck. And instead of having it instantly drop to that level, let's make the decay time go a little longer. And now instead of that real computer type of PC beep message, hey, Jim Dishman, Yirka, what's happening, guys? Daniel Taylor is here too. Oscar, hey, thanks a lot for hanging out and watching sound design with me. Is that loud enough? I'm not sure if you can hear as I'm subtracting level. So now we can make the sustain level like this. And the last thing is, when I take my finger off, the note stops instantly. I know you can't see this. Jim said, I thought that fire truck was over here. That's the power of ambient reverb. It makes you think like sounds are in your head or something. And the last thing here is, I want to, maybe I'll try and show you this on camera. I don't know if that's super meaningful. Okay, watch my finger, right? When I let go, the note stops instantly. Oh, Andrew Howard, volume is good, thank you. The reason it stops instantly when I let go with my finger is because our release time was still at minimum. All right, so let's go back into live. And there's my screen. So when I raise the release time, that means it's going to take longer for the sound to go back to 0 on release. Aha, now my finger is down, off, down, up. And of course, when you make a really long release time, the note just keeps going and going. All right, y'all want a little more synth and a little less voice. Maybe I'll just bring the synth up and try not to talk so loud. I like that. And I'll center that. So with a long release time, the sound just keeps going and going and going. So with just these 4 basic parameters, we can shape all kinds of different interesting sounds and turn them into a track. So that's what we're going to do today. And if we have time at the end, I might run through a couple of our effects. Where did those go? ADSR and plugins. And point out how envelopes can be useful. For example, auto filter. What does it say? Envelope. What do we've got? Attack and release. Oh, okay, dynamic tube. Oh, envelope. Oh, attack and release. So all these things are going to be shaping something about the plugin over time, where there's an envelope that's like how much it's going to affect it, positive or negative, and then the attack and the release are times, which give you a time-based parameter for shaping the sound. So envelopes are super useful. They show up all over the place. Now let me get into these different sounds and see how do they come together to make this track. Right? Lots of different layers, stuff going on. And my theory here was I'm going to take one synth instrument, same instrument, as if I had a hardware instrument and I had to record all the parts with it. And I'm only going to use ADSR envelopes to make different sounds. That was my little challenge here. I was like, can I actually make a track only playing with ADSR? So I started like this. I'll show you the MIDI notes so you can see where how long the notes are. Okay, so that's what the notes are doing. And for this one, the game is attack. I wanted to just use attack time. And since it's kind of a pad sound, I thought, yeah, I'll make it creep in slow. And the really fun thing about this is the sustain level. It doesn't just ramp in and stay loud. It's got like a bump on the front. And then it ducks down a little bit, which is strategically cool because the loud part at the attack time is going to get your attention in the mix, but then it drops down to a lower level, so whatever else is happening in your track is going to keep coming through. And that's a chill kind of atmospheric minor chord sort of thing, good for the end of the world or whatever. I don't know why that makes me laugh. So that's what I did, and I used this sound to talk about all of our ADSR. So let's go on to the next one, and I am doing a bass sound, which is like this. Go for some cheap gain right here in my limiter. Simple bass part. The MIDI notes are short loop, like that. And what am I doing? Well, I want a short attack because I want the bass note to hit almost like, percussive, like but, right there, right away when it starts. Here I have a problem. What is the problem? Type in an answer. Right now the problem went away at 32 milliseconds on the attack time. When I go down to 0 milliseconds, I hear something that does not sound right. So type in an answer. What do you hear in this bass sound at the beginning of every sound, beginning of every note? It's causing me some stress. Should be pretty obvious. You can get rid of it by going like this. Around 8 milliseconds it goes away. There's always this time lag. When I ask a question, I have to wait for you to hear it and type it in, then it comes back to me. Daniel says the click. Here we go, that's the right answer. Tahiri says bass clipping. Yeah, it sounds like bass clipping, and it was clipping for a second when I was just adjusting volume with the limiter. Right now, with the attack at 0 milliseconds, you hear a click because the waveform is just starting like with 0 intro, just bam, it's on, and it's such a sharp attack that we hear it as a click, which can wreak havoc on your mix and gets in the way. Now, that could be cool if you were doing a synthesizer kick drum. Maybe you want to have that click on the front or a hand clap or something. But the caution about attack time is that it's going to give you a click when it's too short. Click for 1,000, Steve. Playing Jeopardy here, that's right. So usually around 5 milliseconds, your attack time is gonna smooth out a little bit. And I like this short because it's a bass part, a bass synth. I want those bass notes to be dropping, you know, some pressure when they hit. So I do want a short attack time. And then what's attack time? What's decay time gonna do? Now look at this. I have sustain at 0, release all the way down here. I can pretty much make a bass sound with only attack and decay. Uh-oh, I hear another click. We solved the click on the attack time. What's going on? Did I make a mistake? Is it... Every time I lift up my finger, I get a click. I know you probably know the answer. Release time. What's happening is the synth is playing a sound, and when I let go of the MIDI note, the synth is like, everybody stop. Even if it's right in the middle of a waveform with the wave up at peak, it still stops. And that is why your release time should basically never be at 0, 0, 0, 0. Right now I'm playing really fast notes with my finger, tuning in, short release. That's right. Bo says the click is happening. Oh no! Daniel, that's right, yeah. It's surprising how long it takes to get rid of the click with release time. It takes like almost 100 milliseconds. So let's be safe, set up around 150. Now we can go back to listening to our sound. Hey, James is here. What's up, man? Hi. And I don't even really need the sustain part of this sound. I'm just shaping my bass sound with attack and decay. And I could be happy with that. If I was really gonna freak out on it, you know, I could go like... Maybe filter this down a little bit, and then what do we have in the filter section? Aha, an ADSR envelope. Attack, decay, release, and sustain is down here. What if I wanted to run an LFO and modulate this thing? What do I have? An envelope. What's in there? Attack, decay, release, sustain. Uh-oh, something's happening. I got a little weird for a second. My point is, ADSR envelopes are not only for volume. In most synths, the default goes to volume, but you can apply them to lots of other places. You can even have a separate modulation section where there's like a free ADSR envelope that you can send to your pan position or send to your like mix of levels or whatever. Sausage Fattener VST would make this bass the boss. That's right. I'm gonna sausage boss this VST bass later. I'm not making fun of you. That's a cool idea. What else do we have in here? Let's keep moving. I want to just show you a couple of ways I design instruments, starting with the same operator patch. We're only using one layer, one oscillator, and I'm putting it in different octaves, right? Yesterday we talked about this a little bit. If you want to have an easy time mixing, put your MIDI notes in different octaves. My bass is down here in the 0 octave. My pad synth up here, like in the octave, you know, the second octave on the MIDI keyboard. Then we went up here. I decided to put my sounds up in octave 3 so that frequency-wise, you know, I'm not trying to put in like 15 sub basses all on the same track. What's this sound like? So you can see we got short MIDI notes, and listen to what they're doing. The notes are staying the same. Copy and paste. Nothing's changing there. Our sustain level is going up. Tahiri, this is the operator synth, which you need to have. If you have live light, you won't be able to use this instrument. It's in Live Standard and Suite only. So you got to look for Operator, or you might have to upgrade. Sorry if that's if you don't have that. So what do we got? I'm just changing sustain level. Take over here. So I started with a real short sound, and I thought, you know, yeah, I'll have some little plucks happening, and then to make them interesting over time, I'll gradually raise the sustain and lower it back down again, so that as they combine with the other sounds, it makes something changing over time staying interesting. My mix is a little whacked out right now, but I think you get the idea. And all that's happening is the sustain level is going up and going down to change those little plucks into, I don't know, tones, sustain tones. And I'll probably go farther and filter these and, you know, do some reverb. So if you have a good synth and a couple little effects, you don't really need a whole lot more than that. Let me take a second and go back to Steve on camera. Reminder, what is the point of doing this? Why are we trying to do this? We're trying to make our own original sounds, okay? If you can take a boring little synth patch and change it into a bass line, a lead, some chords, some pads, another lead that's different from the first lead, and get all that happening just by using a couple of sound design functions, you are golden. You will never run out of ideas. You'll be able to spark new ideas from the, you know, from just like out of your fingertips by doing, picking the right oscillator to work with, applying filters to do the tone shaping or subtracting tone, and then using envelopes to give some pulse to it. Envelopes are all about pulsing, pulsing attack time or having the release time go long or a slow ramp in to get to the sound. All that stuff we just did is easily available to you by playing with the tools that come with every synthesizer in the world. Like you could walk up to a modular synth and be like, oh yeah, the envelope section, I know what to do with this. Or you see the filters on any plugin, grab the cutoff frequency, grab the resonance, and start tweaking, and you're gonna have a good time. It's really not that hard when you recognize these parameters are everywhere to be found on all synthesizers. All you have to do is figure out the faceplate, the interface, find where they are, and then connect them into the place that you wanna play with for that sound. So that's my big speech about that. Release time. What is release time all about? Let's see what we did with this sound. Ooh, not much going on with you. You sound like a little cricket. Ah. But with these notes, when they go longer, they make kind of a chord at the end. Listen to this part. When they're all short, you hear one note at a time, and at the end of the phrase, it plays something like a scale, so it's just notes. But if you leave a long release time, the notes overlap on top of each other, and you get the effect of a chord. So you actually have some harmony happening. And that changes over time again. So that as this little thing is playing, it gets more interesting and pops out in the mix. And what that's doing is giving us a way to create build-ups. So instead of having this one sound do the same thing, the notes get longer and it feels like we're approaching a climax. How cool is that? And what happens at a climax? Climax, you drop the beat. That's what you do. So if you can use your synth parts to build up to that climax, you don't even need beats right away. You could be in a breakdown section, tweak some parameters, real simple, and get something happening. Hey, Shondell, yo man, that mix from yesterday was crazy. And the video editing was crazy too. cut that beat out. So that's the basics of ADSR. I showed you a couple things of how we can make interesting sounds using the same synth instrument by playing different octaves and shaping the tone in different ways with envelopes to make a pad, a bass, a sustained whatever chord pluck, and then a release lead. Now let's go into something that Ableton does, which you don't find everywhere else. Up until now, ADSR is part of pretty much every synth in the world. You can use them on volume. They're almost always hardwired to the volume envelope. And you can use ADSR with filters and pan position and stuff like that. Ableton lets you do a couple cool things in this bottom section where it says loop and repeat. So check out this little sound that I made. I'm going to show you the MIDI notes so you can see. How is that happening? There's only one MIDI note. It's not repeating. I just messed it up with the preview thing. Well, the way I make that happen is with envelope looping. If I turn envelope loop off, and I want you to see where this is in Operator, okay? Because it's important that you understand how to create this on your own. So what you do is go to the loop section in the Operator and grab that little drop-down menu, and you can make the envelope loop. So it's going to play the attack portion. The sustain is going to hold at that volume. When it gets to the release, it doesn't just stop the note. It goes back again and re-triggers the envelope. So with these MIDI notes, I'm holding down a long note, and what's happening is Ableton is looping this envelope to replay that little bump again and again and again, and it sounds like this. You can have looping related to time, or you can have it related to divisions of the beat. Later, Jim. And you can even have it synchronized, which means when you start the notes, they're going to lock in with the global metronome instead of being like free form just with the divisions of the beat. And then trigger, it would be like it reloops every time you trigger the note. So I modified the timing on this one a little bit if you're curious in controller mapping and all that kind of stuff. I changed loop time so it only goes up to 1/8 note and to 1/48 because I liked that stutter sound. That's the speed I wanted it to go to. But it does go all the way to like 4 bars, 1 bar. You could have really long envelope loops if you wanted to hold those notes down all day long. Let's leave that an 1/8 note, and on the other end, oh, I guess 48th is the fastest. I think I just went to 1/16 right here. No, I think I went to 1/48. Let's listen to it again and see how it sounds. So the envelope is looping on every 1/8 note, and then at the end of the phrase, I change the time. With automation, please. So I'm just making this envelope loop, holding down the MIDI notes and having the loop thing do the work for me, and then when I change the loop time, it makes that little glitch at the end. Let's hear this with the beat so it makes sense. Beats on. And that's all it is. Now we got something that's kind of hypnotic, but it's not only repeating, it's got some variation coming in right here. How do you like that? Let me know if you think that's cool or interesting or something that you might be able to do on your own after watching this video. Ooh, there's a swell coming. This release time made me feel like everything was building up to a moment. I better do something. So I'll drop the cymbals in. Daniel says, cool, hey, thank you. You know what we can do? This might be fun. For an even more simple instrument, if you're not totally down with Operator and you don't want to dig into the multiple layers right now, the analog instrument is a great place to play with subtractive synthesis. Jay Sager, what's going on, man? Sorry we're almost at the end of the ADSR lesson for today, but it's nice to see you here. If y'all are not down with Operator, or you don't have Operator, or you think it's too complicated for what you want to do, try the analog synth. This is an even more straightforward subtractive synth where you can start with one oscillator, pick your oscillator shape. Maybe let's turn it up. So I picked a sawtooth wave. And then you go to the filter section. What am I doing? I'm subtracting tone. Sounds like there's a filter envelope doing something. Ooh, so now the ADSR envelope is affecting the filter sound. If I take the attack time short, it's going to make the filter open instantly. If I make the attack time longer, the filter takes longer to reach the full frequency. So ADSR filter envelopes are super fun. I'm sure you can imagine a million sounds you've heard like that. And just to exaggerate what's happening here, let's have the sound, the filter is going to slowly open and then drop off a cliff. If I want it to slowly fall off the cliff or roll down the hill. And if I want the filter to open and then roll down the stairs, not all the way down the cliff. Now it's going to sustain at a medium level. And it's interesting here that there is a sustained time, which is like, I'm a little confused about exactly how to define sustained time here. The sustained level decreases even if you hold the key down. Okay. So that lets you customize, do you want the filter to keep changing when you hold the note down rather than having to let go? So let's make this a little shorter, a little buzzier. And how about in the amp section? Short attack time. Notice the shortest time is 5 milliseconds. It doesn't let you go shorter, so we don't have that click problem. Long attack time slowly ramps in. So basically, ADSR envelopes are going to show up in lots of places, and when you're doing subtractive synthesis, they're usually the third stage. I mean, you could plug it on a modular synth, you could put it somewhere else. But so we've got oscillator, filter, amplifier, and then what do we have? Wham, LFO. That is going to be tomorrow, where we get to make some wubs and have some sounds wobble and change around. So that's what's going on. Here I am on camera, so I'm Steve. Thanks for watching, everybody. I want to show you one of my built-in session lessons. So this is where I make Ableton projects that are guided, and you get to do all these activities inside Ableton with instructions built in, activities inside the program, so you can learn by doing it and playing with it. Should be in screen share, right? Yeah. Now, unfortunately, you need Operator for this one. So if you only have the light version of Ableton, you're not going to be able to do it. You need to have Ableton Suite or the full standard version. But what you get is when you download a live pack, and when you expand it onto your machine, this is exactly what you see. There's a side panel that says Sound Design, ADSR envelopes. We talk about subtractive synthesis, but that doesn't matter so much first. Really what I want you to do is go to the top of the master channel and press play, and it's going to come out like this. Welcome to the Essential Basics of Sound Design, Envelopes. This is the ADSR lesson where we learn about attack, decay, sustain, and release. So that's Steve recorded inside the program with instructions. And then we go through some cool little things for you to I walk you through every step. Watch this. And to make sure you don't get lost, the activities for this lesson happen on channel 1. We have an operator instrument with macro knobs mapped to certain controls. So right now, select channel 1 and do Shift-Tab to make sure you can see the macro controls. So I just did that with my mouse right now. I selected channel 1, do Shift-Tab, and here you can see, ADSR instrument. Well, that looks familiar. I was just teaching you how to use it. And then we go through and do examples. Play the next scene, listen to the example, and hear how the sound changes as we make the attack time longer. You will see macro knob number 1 moving, and also you will see the operator envelope changing shape. So, I play a little MIDI clip in there and record some actual automation. So if you missed the beginning of this broadcast and you want to run through and learn how to use ADSR envelopes to make your sounds change and do cool stuff, you can grab this session lesson and go through all those things. We did attack time. We did decay time. We're going to hear examples of all those. Sustain level, not sustain time. And notice that each module or section here has a little bit of instructions, examples. Your turn. Now there's an activity where you actually grab the macro knobs right here in Ableton and do it yourself with the same instrument, same parameters, same mapping, everything the same, so you can really understand what you're hearing and why it matters. Andy May, are these good for Live 9 and 10? Yes. Inside the member site, there is a live pack for 9 and 10, and they work for both of them. So you got activities, and then I started doing these with an idea to like spark new recordings. So this is basically, the yellow ones here are blank clips where if you're inspired, you can record your own MIDI notes using this sound and go from there and just be like bam, bam, bam. Add new audio tracks, drop some beats, start making a track right here inside the lesson if you want to. To finish up, there's release time. Think about looping the ADSR envelopes and check out this example. I love this sound. I actually did make a track with this sound. All I'm doing is playing some chords and changing that repeat time. When I found out that envelope looping, I was like, I'm gonna do this every day for the rest of my life. So there's an activity and blah, 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 review, ADSR and other places. Then at the end, I actually go through some organized review to try and help you remember this so it's in your brain. On the side panel, there's some graphics and text if you learn by reading, and then some links. So for the very last thing, I'm gonna show you where you can get this right now in the Mixitecture members site. Here is the members site where you'll get a link, and this used to be, am I in preview mode? I better get it in the full one. All right, here's what you see when you first come. Let's go enter as guest. I don't want to show you the admin side. I want to show you what you're actually going to see. Now, the essential basics of sound design used to be one course where you had to buy all these session lessons as one unit, and it was a bunch more expensive. But because I have some free time and I got a better understanding of how people learn, I broke these up into separate little products, and you can buy them each separately for a bunch less money and download it right away to start playing with it inside Live. Here's the intro thing. It tells you what it is, little video to show you what we're going to do in the lesson. A SoundCloud playlist, if you didn't catch the video, you can hear what's in it. And I changed all my pricing to pay what you want. So instead of paying 25 bucks for this lesson to download the Live pack, what if you only want to pay 20? You could type in PAY 20. Bam, price goes down. What if you feel like, I'm going to pay 15 bucks? Price goes down to 15. Even $10 right now, you could get this Live pack for $10, open it up in 5 minutes from right now, crack open that live session and play with these sounds, redo everything we just did on video, but you'll be doing it hands-on with your hands on the controls. I'm going to say $15. If y'all buy this for $15, I'll be more than delighted. And then we can go back in the camera view. So that's what I have to say to you today. I hope you got something out of this. I hope it was effective. I never know how much people are taking away from what I'm teaching, but ADSR envelopes are really cool. You can figure them out on your own. Now that you have the basics of what they are and what they're doing, you can figure them out. I recommend doing one thing at a time. So start with the ADSR envelope on your volume and really play with it until you kind of master the controls and you can make the sound do what you want. And then go to the filter section. I know from experience, if I try to change my filter envelope, but the amp volume is cutting the sound off short, it's like I never hear what the filter's doing because the sound isn't long enough in duration. So make sure you understand the amp volume first so you can hear the sound. Then you can shape it with your filter envelope and go on from there to doing all kinds of stuff with ADR envelopes. Oh, Daniel, thank you. You totally recommended this. Great. And that is all I have for you today. Looks like we're about 40 minutes. I'm trying to keep these well under an hour, even though we're all sitting around at home on the couch picking fuzz out of our belly buttons. I don't want to keep you online all day. So if you have any questions, type them on in, and I'll be happy to answer here and grab the YouTube comments. And since this has on top the restreaming link, I'm going to edit right now. I'll put in the link to the course where you can find the session lesson in the member site, and I'll even update it with these pay what you want coupons, which are active right now. They're not going to be active forever. Next week when I go into a different live stream, I'll probably change those. So if you're interested, grab it now. Thanks for watching, everybody. I would love to hear what you make with this. Make a sound, share it in the Facebook group. Even if it's just a synth, just like make a sound and share it so we know what you're up to and we can hear it and enjoy it with you. It's all about creativity. Stay positive, be healthy, wash your hands, and I'll see you next time, which will be tomorrow.